Hello, you're now listening to Group 4. We, Elizabeth, Mary Kate, Mariah, and Samantha, are the hosts for this lovely podcast. We're going to be discussing a very popular and controversial topic today, the Marxism in the novella Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad.
Some of you may be asking, what is Marxism? Well, let me teach you a few things about Marxism. Marxism is the political and economic theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, later developed by their followers to form the basis for the theory and practice of communism. Marxism was originally called dialectical materialism, created by Hegel and Marx. Hegel created Hegelian dialect, and Marx was a materialist. Materialists base their ideas in decision-making processes like a utopian society would handle them. Marxism combines the two. Marxists view society as two groups, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie was the rich capitalist class, and the poor, usually exploited working class, is the proletariat. Essentially, Marxists view society as those with affluence constantly exploiting those of the proletariat.
So now, let's discuss Marxism. As stated before, Marxism is the political and economic theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, later developed by their followers to form the basis of the theory and practice of communism. From the Marxist perspective, we can come to the conclusion that economic systems that structure human societies help create the human experience. But how does Marxism apply to Heart of Darkness?
Well, Marxism is a critical literary theory within the novella.
Heart of Darkness is essentially all about the imperialist takeover of the Congo by the Europeans. This takeover was to make economic gains for capitalist profit interests, if you will. While in the Congo, the Europeans gathered ivory by exploiting the natives and at the same time abusing them. Vladimir Lenin actually has a work titled Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. Lenin was a Marxist, by the way. Marxists hated imperialism. They saw it as the peak of capitalism, and Marxism was born out of the hatred of capitalism.
So let's divulge into this book, shall we?
In Heart of Darkness, Conrad portrays blacks sympathetically and sarcastically, refers to and condemns the quote-unquote noble aims of European colonists. This demonstrates Conrad's anti-imperialist views. He visited Africa and saw the harsh realities of colonialism.
As a part of Marxism, is there a theory that there was a lopsidedness to the society that created capitalism in the first place?
Indeed, a prime example of lopsidedness that fostered capitalism we see in the character Kurtz. Although the audience may perceive him as greedy, he in fact is just a product of society the society that he lives in.
I read one time in a selection by Terry Eagleton, Marxism and Literary Criticism. A Marxist scholar, George Lucas, defined a realist work as rich in a complex, comprehensive set of relations between man, nature, and history. And these relations embody and unfold what for Marxism is most typical about a particular phase of history. From this, we can see that Kurtz's reasoning for his action comes from the correlation between his mental state and the state of the environment he's surrounded by. Conrad is implying that Kurtz was corrupted by capitalism. Sounds a bit like Marxism, doesn't it?
Doesn't this reveal the class division that Marxism suggests society to develop into? The rich and the poor.
In a way, I think it could due to the greediness of Kurtz and the environment that the Congolese are living in.
It is true to suggest this because if you think deeply about the novella and hidden purposes, Conrad specifically chose to display the natives as the oppressed class who are at the mercy of the capitalists, Kurtz and his team. In the novella, the treatment of the Congolese is not humane. The capitalists live in comfort as they exploit and abuse the Congolese people. In the third section of the novella, the Congolese people who did not meet their quota for the trade got their heads chopped off and placed on sticks. This was meant to scare the others into going above and beyond in order to not receive the same fate.
I remember that scene. I believe the narrator said, "Now I have suddenly a nearer view," and its first result was to make me throw my head back as if it was a blow. Then I went carefully from post to post with my glass, and I saw my mistake. These round knobs were not ornamental, but symbolic. They were expressive and puzzling, striking and serving food for thought, and also for vultures if there had been any looking down from the sky. But at all events, for such ants as were industrious enough to ascend the pole, they would have been even more impressive. Those heads on stakes, if their faces had not been turned to the house, only one. The first I made out was facing my way. I was not so shocked as you may think. The start back I had given was really nothing but a movement of surprise. I had expected to see a knob of wood there, you know. I returned deliberately to the first I had seen, and there was black, dried, sunken with closed eyelids. A head that seemed to sleep at the top of the pole, and with the shrunken dry showing a narrow white line of teeth, was smiling too, smiling continuously at the endless and jocose dream of eternal slumber.
What a great quotation, Samantha. Now, to get into something a little more to exploitation, the Congolese people's exploitation specifically, education.
Now, we can all agree that education is a very important aspect of everything we do in life.
Absolutely. We need the knowledge and strong foundation in order to aspire to be our best versions of ourselves.
Education was a major part of why the Europeans went to colonize Africa in the first place. They wanted to spread their sphere of influence. The Europeans wanted to be the source of that foundation we all need to grow as a civilization. However, the way they went about doing so was not the most intelligent.
Anyway, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Marxist leaders saw the education system and believed that the education system was a
Conspiracy!
which exists to deny the children of the working class access to an understanding of their true class position.
Their lacking education only allowed the Congolese people to worship capitalist lords like Kurtz and not stage a coup. In Heart of Darkness, the Congolese did not seem to be aware of the difference between the classes. Marxists would have wanted the natives to be educated, so they in fact recognized the difference between the two classes and the exploitation they dealt with. So they'd revolt against the capitalists. The capitalists depriving quality education from the natives was a tool of imperialism so that they stay ignorant and blind to what they were truthfully doing to them. The thought process behind imperialism was to make the natives civilized, and to be truthfully civilized, one needs education. The natives were deprived of what I believe is a natural right.
I do agree. If the Congolese people had the education and recognized their wrongdoings of the Europeans, it may have been a different story. If they had the proper education, they would have not been seen as savages.
Very true, very true. To shift to another topic under the Marxist in Heart of Darkness umbrella, let's talk about religion.
Marxists do not see religion as a savior from the exploitation from the bourgeoisie. Religion actually brings about acceptance of their fate. It makes them recognize their fate. Europeans first entered other countries to spread Christianity via love and hope. Later on, these same people preaching love became hypocrites and used their power over the uneducated masses to rule them. The natives' beliefs in Christianity led them to accept their fate and the abuses of the missionaries.
One of the most obvious connections to religion in Heart of Darkness is Kurtz. The natives worshipped him as a god, but Kurtz is not a god. It seems as though through Conrad's portrayal of Kurtz, that Kurtz is not a religious man himself. The exploitation of the natives brought about by him is obviously not that of a religious man. A religious man most likely would have not done that to the natives. A religious man would have probably tried to rescue the natives from any exploitation that they faced due to the Europeans. Kurtz was actually seen as somewhat like a god to the Europeans as well. Excuse me, I'm sorry. They admired Kurtz's power over the natives that made him the best of the company when it came to gathering ivory.
Marxists believe ignorance is a major driving force in religion, and sadly the natives were ignorant. Not by choice, but because of their lacking education. They believe that those that are part of ignorant masses worship those who are actually the ones making matters worse. They are the oppressors. The object of worship are the abusers.
Marxism is extremely prevalent throughout the novella, as demonstrated through imperialism, education, and religion.
It was not extremely obvious originally, but after delving into Marxism and its incredible novella, we can all plainly see Marxism is prevalent.
As this wonderful podcast comes to a close, we'd like to thank a few people: Mrs. Smith, Joseph Conrad, and Karl Marx. Without them, this podcast would not have happened.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day.